And we're now about to discuss one of the most possibly emotional experiences, that of payroll. Where we've got VIJAY here to talk to us about it. VIJAY, could you start by sharing a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, mate. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me here. Great show so far. My name is VIJAY. I work for a company called ADP. And I've been with ADP for almost 22 years now. I worked in the US for about 12 years, and then I decided to move back home. So I've been here in Hyderabad for 10 years now.
21 years. You must have seen a lot of the payroll problems companies get themselves into, a lot of the challenges, a lot of the bad results that ensue when payroll isn't handled properly. So, tell us a bit about some of the most memorable payroll problems you have seen companies encounter.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to call the payroll issues as memorable issues. You know, in general, if you hear about a payroll issue, that's not a good thing. So you wanted to make this as a non-event, so that way people are not talking about, my payroll not done on time or it's not accurate. So usually on time is not the issue, it's the accuracy sometimes. And there are a lot of things that can contribute to, the payroll accuracy. It all depends on small examples of, how the employee is set up, what are the different parameters that you are taking in, how you are, are you accounting for holidays, time offs. There are multiple inputs that needs to come together to have the payroll done accurately. And it's not the payroll calculation that's the difficult part. It's the complexity is in bringing all these different inputs to a platform and then feed that into the engine. So that's where the complexity is. And we've been in this business for almost 60 plus years, and we've been serving for more than 9 lakh customers, and we serve in 140 different countries. So each sector, each country brings in different types of challenges. So it's very difficult to quantify or talk about different things. One small example that I can give is 911. So when we had this attack on the World Trade Center in US, the entire transport industry came to a halt. Am I audible? Yeah, okay. So the entire transport industry came to a halt. Then the question was, those days direct deposit is still not as relevant. And a lot of paychecks, many employees, not everybody is privileged. And for them, it's hand to mouth. So you need to make sure you provide salary on time. And we had this dilemma of how do we deliver these paychecks to our employers. Luckily, we had many print regions that are spread across in US, and many employees, including myself, actually we printed paychecks and then put it in our cars and then went and delivered to some of our employers. That actually stayed with me for a long time, and I feel very proud to work for a company where it's not looked at as a business transaction. At the end of the day, it's actually a meaningful activity that puts either put food on the table for their family, or pay for the housing, or pay the bills for the children's education. It's for a higher cause. So that's what I feel. So that's one of the very memorable events for me. And some of the challenges that I talked about, small issues or setup issues, these are typically happen at any time of the employee life cycle. So majority happen during when you're hiring employees, wrong information is keyed in, or not collecting the right information, or when you're doing mergers and acquisitions, when you're transferring data from system to system, you're not transferring that appropriately. So those are some of the scenarios that you can think of. The employee classification is another example of where payroll can go wrong. There is a law in US, so if any employee works for more than 40 hours, and the employers have to pay overtime unless they are classified as exempt. So if that is not done, then companies have to pay penalties. And in 2019 alone, more than $300 million have been collected by the Labor Department as back pays. That creates a lot of friction in the system, right? You got to go back and try to figure out how do you do retro pays, how do that adds a lot of overhead because you need to correct. They'll have financial impacts because you may have to pay the penalties because you haven't calculated it accurately. You may not have paid the tax here. If you want to bring it back to India, are we paying the provident fund accurately or on time? So some of these are the challenges that you come across during payroll.
These are huge. You're talking about essential services when people don't get paid for essential work that they do. You're talking about low-wage workers who are going to suffer the most when the payroll messes up. If we broaden this a little bit, this is definitely going to affect companies' payroll strategy. I mean, everybody here knows that if you do not pay your workers enough, they are more likely to just pull up roots and walk off these days. How is this going to affect people's talent strategy if they have payroll challenges like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very important question and also a very complex question too. So the people strategy is connected to the payroll, but payroll alone is not going to define the people strategy. Payroll is an event, and at the time, it's a very important event. Like I said earlier, I would like that to be every time we run payroll a non-event. I don't want to have an event when we run the payroll. And employees nowadays, the new gig employees or the new gen employees, what they are looking for is not just the payroll and the paycheck alone. They are looking for the entire experience from hiring to retirement. They wanted to have the full life cycle experience to be better than what it used to be earlier. When I started my work, it's like 30 years ago, if I just get the paycheck, that alone I'm happy. It's like hey, finally I have some money in my hand, even if that is like 40 days after my join date. Those are the things that are changing nowadays. Nobody wants to wait 30 days or 40 days because my payroll cutoff date is over. So people are not happy with that. When I'm joining, I had to fill in a lot of paperwork, all kinds of information. There's a lot of back and forth with my talent acquisition team or with my comp team. Am I able to provide the right information, the bank information, deductions, whatnot, all of that. There is a lot of friction in that process. So that needs to be improved. The taxation aspects, in some countries where you live matters. If you move from one PIN code to the other PIN code or zip code to other zip code, your taxes will change. In India, we don't have that problem, but we do have the timeliness or the timely payment of the taxes. If you join on 28th or 29th, but if your payroll cutoff date is on 25th, so how do we pay the provident fund? Are we paying it on the same month? Are we paying it on the next month? From a compliance standpoint of view, people need to look at that. Are we compliant to that part? So that are and all of these inputs are very important for the CHROs and CEOs, so they can figure out what is the right way. So another example is new wage code that's coming up soon. Right now, it's not in effect yet. But we are seeing that the salaries are going to get impacted because the take-home may get impacted for some associates or the employees. The take-home is going to be less. So what does that mean? So does this mean am I going to offer more when I'm hiring those associates? All these inputs, from your time, your leave of absence, your benefits, your compensation management, all these systems, all those inputs needs to be provided to these systems or processes where it define a compensation strategy that eventually will lead into the people strategy.
This is an excellent point. I think for those of you who have gone through the digitalization process, you might be able to contrast what it's like before when you are signing off on every single piece of paper versus when you manage to automate it. Could you tell us a little bit more about, when you want to digitalize, especially something like payroll, there is so much to convert, so many steps to go through, so many things to make sure you have caught up, that you don't lose any of the small details. Any tips? How to start? How to make sure it goes well?
I mean, obviously, technology plays a huge role in having the right platforms and having the timely inputs and having the right processes to audit the process, audit your steps, and verify and move the money to the banking systems onto the bank. So that is all driven by technology. ADP has been in the forefront in adopting the technology. When we obviously it started all with a small garage. Our founder Henry Traub, when he started this, he started in a garage. But in the last 70 years, we've been in the forefront of adopting the latest and greatest in a very timely manner. Actually, I would say a little bit ahead of the rest of the technology. In 1960s, we were actually using the punch cards and the time machines and the mainframes. We are one of the first people to adopt to those technologies those times. And then we are actually a SaaS company all along. Before the term cloud is even invented, we've been on the cloud. Of course, we're not in the public cloud those days, but we're all a SaaS provider. All our systems are SaaS-based at the time. In fact, our Chennai business unit is one of the first business units who actually migrated to the cloud, public cloud, and they were able to scale up tremendously since that part. The reliability factor has gone up, the efficiency, the performance, all those leading up to the the employee satisfaction and the employer satisfaction from our client's perspective. And it's not, and also the other inputs. When I talked about the benefits, the comp, the time and attendance, all of that. These integration points. The technology can help in removing the seams and making it seamless, so you can have a timely payroll and also have a better experience from an employee standpoint of view. So it's not just about the current technology, it's also about the future technologies too. So we are actually working with many of the banks in US, actually trying to see what's next. So like I mentioned earlier, people used to take a lot of time in calculating the payroll and getting the payroll delivered too. So 30 to 40 days used to be the norm. Now the new age employees, they don't want to wait. In the morning they work for Uber, in the evening they work for Ola, and the night time they may work for a restaurant. They want to be paid right then and then. At the end of the shift, they want to know how much they made, what's their take home, what's going out for taxes. That is a very important aspect. The ecosystem hasn't developed yet. So the ADP has real-time payroll is in thing for us. We are live. We have the systems who can calculate the real time. It's the payment aspect of it. Is the agencies ready to take the taxes? We don't have to pay the taxes right now. We accumulate, we accrue them, and then at the end of the day or end of the week, end of the the pay cycle, we are making those payments to the agencies. But from an employee standpoint of view, so we do have solutions like the pay card. So I strongly believe that is the next gen or the new age, the payment platforms for the next gen employees. The 7% of our US population right now, they don't even use bank accounts. They don't have the direct deposit. The money gets deposited into their the pay cards, and it's accrued hourly. So if I work for a small company for 4 hours, at the end of the 4 hours, whatever I'm entitled to, it gets accrued on that card. And there is a limit on how much you can withdraw, whatnot, based on the local compliance, but the solution is out there. So it's connecting the dots between where we were and what's current, what's next. So technology can play a huge role in actually advancing what needs to be done from a payroll perspective.
I love those examples. But now I'd like to switch to a slightly more controversial question. We have heard speakers today talk about how technology is fantastic, but there's also always this little downside to it. And there have been times, I think, when people run into payroll problems and they blame the technology. What's your take on that?
So on one hand, you're asking me technology advantages, and then you're saying, okay, what can go wrong? I mean, technology, if you don't, it's just an enabler. Technology alone cannot solve problems. Actually, we just heard, Shakun talked about, and then multiple other speakers here in the conference talking about the employee experience and how they feel and how they receive this technology, how they use the systems. That's what matters in the end. It's not what's done on the front end. There are a lot of studies that are nowadays coming out. AI and ML technologies can bring in about $20 trillion to the GDP by 2030. The cloud business is like more than $1,000 billion by 2028. All these numbers are good, but if you don't have the right strategy, if you don't have the human element be part of those technology solutions, I don't think it will work well from an employee perspective. And one small example I can provide is, I'm sure many organizations here, including ADP, we send out tenure appreciations or event appreciations, happy birthday emails. So I get that email. I do not know if I received that email from a system or my manager actually sent it. I probably would love to hear from my manager saying that, happy birthday, rather than just receiving that email. So that's, technology is good in reminding and sending these, but at the same time, if you lose that, human empathy and compassion, I don't think, it works well. The other aspect, the other, frictional point in this community, what I feel is the CHROs and CIOs sometimes, they both have their own point of views. The CIOs think that, from a technology standpoint of these are our standards, this is what we wanted to use. And from CHRO and human compassion standpoint of view, these are the things that we wanted to do for the associates or the employees, and sometimes they don't match. I think there is an opportunity to collaborate well and then make it better for everybody.
I love that, and it is so absolutely true that in the end, it is the employee experience, the employee perception, which makes all the difference. People plus technology, that is what TechHR is about.
Yeah.
So we have a few minutes left. Vijay, would you want to take a few questions from the
Sure,
audience?
why not?
Anyone? Yes.
As you said, one person is working for Ola, and the same person is working for, let's say, Zomato or let's say Swiggy. In one day, if one person is doing 3 jobs, so there would be a non-compliance issue in terms of ESI and PSI, PF. So how would you manage that compliances?
So these are, again, emerging markets and emerging technologies right now. They are all contingent workers. So how you calculate the compliance rules on some of these are different. So we have to be very, very careful and thoughtful on how we calculate that. Do we issue multiple, Form 16s or W2s, depending on the country, depending on the local region? Some of these compliances will be different.
Hello. So if you've taken a stroll around here, there are a lot of startups here offering SaaS services. What are some of the startups softwares that you've used personally in your organization? And were they productive or were they counterproductive? Any thoughts on the same?
I'm sorry, some of the startup softwares that we used in ADP and productive or not productive?
Basically, any startups, incentive programs, automating them, any automation that you have used, basically, has it been productive or not productive? Whatever your views are on the same.
Yeah, I mean, we have a business unit called ADP Ventures. So that is our area where we experiment. We work with a lot of business partners. We work with a lot of startup ecosystems. ADP Market is a business domain that we started. So we have a lot of data. So we've been working in this industry for many years. We have huge payroll data, benefits data, and all of that. And we wanted to actually share that with the ecosystem. There are a lot of companies who may be more experienced and more interested in doing, let's say, recruitment management. Of course, we have our own products, but we wanted to make sure that we provide this information through APIs, through these marketplace. And there are about 100 plus partners right now that are signed up. These are all, many of them are startups, small companies. And we do work with them very closely. We mentor them, we monitor them. And if you are interested, we can definitely take that offline and then have that conversation.
I'll second that on ADP's data. They have some marvelous research.
Yeah.
You can use this mic.
Hello, I'm Surjit from Publicis Sapien. My question is regarding the payment to a third party for the contingent worker. Do we have any solution where we can pay to the third party for the contingent worker payment?
Yeah, we do have it. Actually, we have a booth right across. We should be able to spend some time and then explain what solutions we have for those.